Hello everyone, my name is Ryan. I am an interpreter with California State Parks up here at the North Coast Redwoods District. Some of you might recognize me from some of the Facebook Lives I did earlier this year about salmon and watersheds. Well, I'm not actually live today, I'm pre-recorded. I'm here to share with you a discussion that I had with one of our Natural Resource Program biologists named Marisa Parish. And she is working in the aquatic environment. I'll let her describe some of the work that she's having. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with her at Prairie Redwood State Park, which is just one of the many places where she does her work. And this interview and this discussion is all part of our celebration of California Biodiversity Week, which we're in the middle of. And you've probably seen some of our videos, some discussions, some creature features. Maybe you've even taken part in some Bioblitzes. Maybe you downloaded that iNaturalist app on your phone and you've gone to Humboldt Redwoods or Prairie Redwood State Park and taken observations. Remember, we're in the middle of this competition between these two parks, a clash of titans. Which park is the biodiversity champion? You can help us decide and figure out that answer. Now, if you're not in the North Coast Redwoods District, maybe you're somewhere else, you can also take part in this biodiversity celebration. You can go over to the page, the resources.ca.gov, and look Biodiversity 2020, and also check out our Facebook page for other links. There are events that are happening, and of course, a lot of these are virtual events because we're not able to gather right now because of COVID, but there's lots of things that you can do. You can get out on the trail yourself, you can enjoy biodiversity, and you can take part. Remember to keep checking out our Facebook page, keep following up on the updates about this clash of titans that's happening. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to my discussion that I had earlier this week with Marisa Parish over at Prairie Redwood State Park. And Marisa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I work here with state parks and focus on the aquatic environment. So anything that relies on the stream, we help study and monitor and do restoration to protect. So fish and amphibians and reptiles, but also any of our trail building might deliver soil to the stream. So we need to work to protect and minimize those erosion opportunities so that we protect the quality, so the clarity and the temperature of the stream as well.
So we're here in Prairie Creek, which is a state park that is a old growth redwood forest. These trees have been here for thousands of years, and this stream, Prairie Creek, has been protected for about 100 years, almost 100 years, and that is not exactly where a lot of your work is taking place. So why is it good to have a place like this to kind of observe? And
yeah, so this old growth environment would have had the streams that have the natural processes to promote a diversity of habitats that the fish rely on. And we can learn from these old growth streams on how we can implement restoration actions to promote those natural processes in streams that might have been impacted from past, say, logging operations. So this gives us the baseline data of how frequently there should be wood, and how much wood could be in a stream, so we can make decisions about where to do restoration actions.
Awesome. So just thinking about the work that you do, could you tell us a little bit more about what you do in our district?
Yeah, in our district we have 22 parks, and a lot of them have streams with salmon in them. So salmon come in as adults from the ocean in the winter, and they use these freshwater streams to spawn and lay their eggs. And so in the winter, we look for those adult salmonids by walking the stream and looking for the nests that they build, which we refer to as redds. And that can get to a population estimate of the number of fish that are coming back to spawn. We also survey in the summer to look for the juvenile fish and see where they're rearing, because different ages, different life stages of fish are using different habitats. So we're monitoring the fish populations and the stream habitat throughout the year in its different flows.
Some of the work that you are doing, I know up in the Mill Creek watershed, up in North Coast Redwoods State Park. What kind of things are happening up there?
Yeah, we're doing a really big restoration initiative to restore both the forest, where we have some overly dense forests left from past logging and a lot of old roads on the hill slopes that we're working to restore to minimize the sediment delivery to streams, and we're also adding wood to the streams to get back to these old growth conditions, trying to accelerate recovery and regeneration of old growth forests. So we're surveying the streams for how much wood is currently in the streams and comparing to places like here in Prairie Creek to decide how much large wood we should put into streams.
So you mentioned large wood, and I think for a lot of people, and I a little background about myself is I worked in for Fish and Wildlife as a scientific aide for a couple of years, and one of the things that kind of blew my mind is how important large wood was for salmon, which you might not think that there'd be a connection having big wood in the creeks as being important, but why is that important for salmon?
Yeah, large wood is really important because it's driving a lot of the stream form. So a really big piece of wood, as the water's flowing past it, it'll scour a really deep pool, and those deep pools have colder water and good cover for juvenile fish to hide in. It's also scouring out and sorting the sediment, so you're getting groups of different sizes of gravels and cobbles, and that helps different fish of different species and different size choose where they want and have that habitat to lay their eggs in. It's also causing the stream to move and meander, so you just get diversities of flows. Smaller fish need more low flow, so more so they can hide from those really fast flowing currents in the winter and use less energy during those high flows as a small fish.
So you're kind of basically the wood itself, it creates this complexity and dynamic to the creek, whereas ordinarily it would just be this flowing water through a channel, but the wood kind of retains gravel, creates some habitat, makes some pools, it gives the fish a place to go.
Diversity of habitats.
So biodiversity, diversity of habitats. What other living things depend on the salmon? I mean, how do salmon themselves promote biodiversity?
Yeah, and the wood insects are relying on the wood to hide or to feed on. The leaves that fall into the stream feed on the insects, and then those insects also feed on the carcasses. As the adult salmon come back and lay their eggs, they die in the stream and insects then feed on those carcasses. And then as those insects hatch, they'll maybe feed the birds or bats. So it makes the aquatic environment and species connected to the terrestrial species.
So they're kind of this bridge between.
Yeah, they're a bridge between the two.
That's great.
And a bridge between the ocean and the forest, bringing those ocean nutrients back to the forest, feeding the old growth trees, giving them their vitamins.
I like that. That's really good. The definition of comparing the salmon to vitamins of the forest. Now, I could talk about salmon with you forever, just because it's definitely one of my favorite things as well. But as far as the people who are kind of joining us, what are things that people, just common folks, can do to either support your work or help watershed and salmon health where they're at?
Yeah, a watershed is really reliant on the diversity of plant life that evolved with it, and so sometimes areas there's non-native plant species that could come in, and maybe your local watershed organization or maybe a native plant nursery has volunteer days where they go in and remove non-native species or maybe plant native species to help create that diversity of habitats and food resources, which also are providing shade for the stream. Vegetation is really important to help keep that cool water that the fish rely on, and provide leaf matter, which insects rely on. So you could go volunteer with some of your local organizations. One of the organizations that I could shamelessly plug, and you probably could too, is the Watershed Stewards Program, which we were both members of back in the day. And Watershed Stewards Program, they're all across California's mostly coast, a little bit inland too in the Central Valley, but it's a special project it's just a project of the CCC, California Conservation Corps, and their emphasis is helping to restore watersheds in local communities, as well as promoting and kind of springboarding the next generation of resource professionals. So it's this skills building program that also helps the community. And when you look around here, a lot of our watersheds, a lot of our streams and stream environments in California do not look exactly like what we have here. So I just should showcase a little bit. This is a very intact watershed where the creek itself, Prairie Creek, is surrounded by old growth redwoods and is
benefited by having those trees that occasionally fall into the stream. The shade that these trees create creates cool environments for salmon and for basically places for them to have refuge. Those trees also giving them maybe pools and backwater and places to hang out when they're young and they're not ready to go out to the ocean. So this is a perfect example of an intact ecosystem with lots of biodiversity, lots of different things depending on those salmon, whether it's invertebrates or all the way up into mammals that depend on them. One last thing I wanted to ask you, Marisa, is there some memorable wildlife encounter or some kind of encounter with biodiversity that you have had that you could share with us?
Yeah, well, walking the streams in the summer and winter, you see different species relying on salmonids. So I've seen observations of otters coming up the stream looking for adults to feed on, but also in the summer seeing dippers. The American dipper, or the water ouzel, is a small songbird about this size. And it can swim or walk underwater and has kind of built-in goggles on its eyes to be able to see underwater and catch insects and fish, and will catch small fish and hit them on rocks before they eat them. And also lots of kingfishers swimming or flying up the river corridor. So lots of both aquatic and terrestrial observations in various surveys of the past.
So definitely still related to the stream and related to what benefits from this intact stream ecosystem.
Yeah, the diversity of species that rely on the intact ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, great. Marisa, thank you so much for taking time to share with us a little bit about what you do and what people can do. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Marisa Parish, one of the biologists in our natural resource team here at the North Coast Redwoods District. Remember, there's going to be other conversations and other videos that you can check out during California Biodiversity Week here at the North Coast Redwoods District. If you want to know more, you can check out our Facebook page. You can also go to resources.ca.gov to find more information about California Biodiversity Day, and you can also go to californiabiodiversityinitiative.org. And with that, I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully, we'll see you out on the trail.